Hey guys, I'm Dominique Storm, and this is episode 9 of Healing Hoes Ain't Hatin'. And if you're new here, Healing Hoes Ain't Hatin' is a YouTube series that I started on my channel in January. This is basically me documenting my healing process, and I'm also hoping that me sharing my story can help trigger someone else in a positive way into starting their healing journey. And when starting your healing journey, it doesn't have to look like mine. Whatever works for you is for you. So as you guys can see, this episode is going to be about depression. I'm going to insert the definition. All right, so now that we got that out the way, let's start. The first time I noticed I was going through depression was after I had my first daughter 17 years ago. I went through something that a lot of moms, and I'm sure other people, if you're not a mom, you heard of postpartum depression. I really didn't know much about it, but I noticed me not feeling like myself after I had my daughter. Of course, you know, you go through a bunch of different hormonal changes and things like that. So I noticed like me just not being myself and just not feeling the same. And I started to do a little research on Google on my own and just looking up things and just seeing at that time, I never really wanted to harm myself. But I used to envision myself like jumping out the window. And it's so crazy because I never really wanted to even then jump, visualizing myself jumping out the window. I used to literally visualize myself like jumping out the window, but then like sliding down the building like like a cartoon character and just kind of like landing down safely. So I never really wanted to kill myself, but it was just like a feeling that I had. The second time I experienced that was after I had my second daughter. But this time I'm a lot older. I had my first daughter at 18, if you guys are new here. And the second time I had my second daughter at the age 28. So this time I'm a lot more mature. I'm like, no, this is not right. So I started to look for a therapist. When my daughter was about like 6 months, I started to look for a therapist. So I went online, and I didn't even know, at this time, I didn't even know that when you go, you can actually like see pictures of the therapist and you get like a little bio and things like that. So I started to go through a list of therapists that took my insurance, and I connected with a lady online. And it's so crazy because I had I had a really big connection with her. It was just through a picture and through her bio. And she used the word spiritual. And if you guys saw I think it was episode 3, religion versus spirituality. That's when I started to second child. I started my spiritual awakening and my spiritual journey. So if you guys want to learn more about that or just hear more about my story, you can go to episode 3. It's called spirituality versus religion or religion versus spirituality. And I speak a lot more in depth on that. So I had like a spiritual connection with this lady. So I remember the first time I contacted her over the phone, she mentioned that she wasn't taking any new clients because she had hurt herself. So I was like, all right, that must be a sign. You don't need to go to therapy, because I'm sure a lot of us that grew up, if you're African American, if you're Black, you grew up in a household, therapy is kind of like a little bit taboo. Like, therapy, you better go to Jesus and pray it off. So I was like, all right, that's my sign. Then she actually contacted me back a couple of weeks later, and she said that she's open to taking new clients. So I'm like, okay, this is another sign that I actually need to go. So when my daughter turned 6 months is when I first started to go to therapy, and my daughter is 7 now. So I started that. I would go once a week. I would even bring my daughter with me. That's how desperate I was for therapy. I would go, and I started my therapy sessions, and I actually started to really feel a lot better. I was going in for a couple of months. And then, so my daughter turned 1 in November, and then that was in 2006. She turned 1. And then the following year, no, not 2006, 2016. Then the following year, 2017, in February, I moved to Connecticut. So when I moved to Connecticut, my insurance was no longer covering me. So I stopped going to therapy. So it was very beneficial to me at the time and stuff like that. Then occasionally I would actually pay cash to, have to go visit my therapist and see her anytime I would go to New York and I had the time and she had an opening. So I was still kind of going. Then the pandemic hit, in 2020. I went through the whole motions, like, just like the rest of the world. And not only that, my job actually laid off a bunch of workers, and I was one of the workers that got laid off. So I went through that, and during the pandemic, it was like a really difficult time because I went from, seeing my children in the morning, going to work, coming home, and we had a routine. Then we spent time on the weekends with each other, and I was pretty much, like a working parent, regular routine, seeing their kids. I went from that to like spending every single day, every single hour in the day in the house with my children. And at that time, I was living in Connecticut. I was living in New London, Connecticut. So that's like 2 to 3 hours, depending on the traffic, by car from New York City. And things were a lot different from New York City. In New York City, a lot of my peers and family members, they still were going outside and stuff like that. Where I lived at, it was actually like shut down. So every 3 weeks I would go outside. I remember it was like I was a part of a movie. It felt like I would be all bundled up and gloves on, mask on, 2 masks on. I was one of those people that was wearing a mask in a car. Like, that's how crazy it was. I remember I used to Lysol myself, Lysol the car when I get in, when I get out. I was super crazy with it and stuff like that. And every 3 weeks I would go like do like a really big food shopping. And then I would, every 3 weeks I would repeat the same process. And during that time, also, I re-picked up the habit of drinking. I wasn't drinking, I wasn't smoking, anything like that when I moved to Connecticut, but I used to get like I would get a gallon of Hennessy. I'm laughing, but it's really not funny. I would get a gallon of Hennessy and 2 big bottles of wine. And that will last me for 3 weeks. And then I will go back and go food shopping, visit the liquor store. So I was spending a lot of time like drinking all night long. And then I would sleep the whole day. And I would repeat that process every single day until I realized, like, wait, hold the hell up. Like, you're not even parenting. You're not even momming the way that you mom. Because I was going through, just like everybody else, the whole pandemic, not having a job. And also my dad, he was in and out the hospital during the pandemic, so I was dealing with that and stuff like that. So it was extremely hard for me during that time. Then in 2021, my father passed away in January, in the beginning of January 4th, 2021. My father passed away, and I started back feeling those same symptoms of being depressed, but it was actually on a larger scale this time. It was really, it was a lot. It was like I never even got a chance to process the pandemic, and then my father's death, and now I'm coming back to New York. I relaunched my business directly after, like, the same month my father died. I relaunched my business. This was something that was in the process before he died. So I just, I picked up where I wanted, like, I didn't want to stop my flow and stuff like that. So I wasn't really taking time to actually deal with or process any of these things. I was just kept going. And then I just, like, I crashed. And I noticed I was sinking into, like, this is like the worst depression I've ever been through. And not only was it depression I was going through, every childhood trauma that ever took place in my life that I forgot about, because, our brains are very unique. They're wonderful. They will literally block out things that can kill you, right? Mentally, physically take you out. Our brains will suppress those memories. For whatever reason, every last memory, anything that ever took place just came rushing back. Like, whoosh, you had the pandemic, whoosh, your daddy died, whoosh. Now, everything that you ever thought you forgot about that took place as a child, whether it was mistreatment, whatever, here, take that, take that, take that. So every week, it was like every week I was getting slapped with a new thing, like, pow, you remember that? Pow, remember that? Pow, remember that? Pow, 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 pow. So it was just like, so I just had to like take a real big like pause. And when I moved back to New York City, I was staying with my mother. I had the home that I'm living in now, but it just felt more convenient to be with my mother. She was cooking. I didn't have to worry about cleaning a lot. It was just like, everything that I was doing in Connecticut, being a full-time mom, I was actually relieved of a lot of those duties because I was back at my mother's house. So I know people, talk a lot of crap about people staying with their mamas and stuff like that, but that was the best thing that I could have ever experienced. It helped me tremendously. I decided that I needed to go back to therapy full time. But I'm paying this out of my pocket, and $90 every week is a lot of money for somebody that is not like working, that's running their own business. Because, if running your own business, money can come in, you'll be doing great 1 week or 1 month, and the next month or next week is kind of slow and stuff like that. So I was paying for everything, and I was going through that whole process of it. And I also even took like an inner child healing therapy session that was an hour and a half. That was really good. That was extremely helpful. That got me through that process. I just want to speak about signs of depression, things that, some people may ignore, or it may come off as you being lazy, but trust me, it's not you being lazy. It's your body processing everything. Your brain may be saying one thing, but your body is like, chill, you got to relax. You got to take it easy. You need to process this. We need to heal this. We need to get through that. And I was still, wanting to hang out and run my business and stuff like that. And then my body just shut down. It was like, no. So it'll be like days at a time that I would just be on the couch, sitting on the couch, just like not moving, just sitting there. And the only thing that I was able to do at that time was just be on my cell phone. Like, that was the only thing that was giving me dopamine, like giving my brain like, ooh, 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 ooh. So I would find myself still working on my business and stuff like that. But mentally, I checked out in every other area, like being a mom, being a daughter, being a friend, being a whatever. Everything else I just kind of checked out. And, because these are my confessions, right? So as crazy as this shit may sound, like, there'll be times that, like, I will go days without even taking a shower. Like, I would just sit on the couch and just be like a zombie, like, with my cell phone scrolling, like, yeah, act like LOL, like, act like I'm laughing and entertaining myself with people, but I just completely checked out to everybody else. But on social media, I still was out loud living and stuff like that. But in my real world, internally, I was dying. I was just really, really, really going through it. Even with the help of a therapist, it was still hard for me to like process it and stuff. Also, with the help of my therapist, I would still even like reach out and call like different family members and friends and stuff like that. And I would try to, vent to them. And I learned that like, people are not equipped. Regular people, me, you, we're not licensed therapists, counselors, psychiatrists and stuff like that. We're not equipped to deal with other people's problems. We are barely dealing with our own problems and stuff like that. So I would call people and they would kind of like not laugh it off or joke it off, but like they weren't receptive to what I was saying and stuff like that. I was pouring on these people all my problems and all my things, and they weren't able to process this stuff themselves. So there weren't really any, help. And not that they didn't want to be helped. I learned that they're just not equipped for it. So I just want to kind of like give out some pointers and stuff like that. I always like to give like a backstory, and then I want to, get to the pointers. Friends and family members are definitely not equipped for our problems. They have their own problems and stuff like that. And so I really, I know it's a lot of taboo on going to therapy or counseling and stuff like that. I think that if you are experiencing depression or symptoms of depression, if you're not feeling well, I really highly recommend that it is a good idea to seek help and get a therapist. And if you don't feel, comfortable going to therapy, get a journal, start writing down your problems. You can video journal, something similar to what I'm doing, but you don't have to share with anyone. I only share like 20% of my story to you guys. I never give you guys like the full story because these are things that I feel comfortable sharing. I don't feel comfortable sharing every single detail, and that's okay, right? So, just you looking at your cell phone and you having a conversation, or maybe even you writing a letter to a person or writing a letter to yourself about how you're feeling and stuff like that. And you take the letter, you rip it up, you burn it up. That's a nice way to help you release some of that if you don't feel right going to a therapist, or if you don't have the insurance or the money. I completely understand. I think that's a great way of getting it out. I also would like to say, if somebody feels comfortable enough to come to you when they're going through a difficult time, I think that even though it's not our job, I just want you guys to be extremely mindful of what you're saying to this person, because if somebody's choosing to call you during a difficult time, they chose you. They could have called anybody in the world, but they called you. Even though you're not equipped, you can let them know, like, listen, I'm really not equipped for this, or I can't really take on what you're saying after they spoke to you. So maybe they know the next time not to reach out to you, but just listen. Just allow them to vent, and let them know that if you are able to be there for them, let them know, like, I'm here for you. If you need to call me again, or you can give them recommendations to therapists or whatever it is, but do your best not to just like shoot somebody off, because you can actually be saving somebody's life. That one phone call that you may have brushed somebody off could be what actually saved that human. You know what I mean? A lot of us are suffering, and we can't even go to our friends and families because people are not receptive to receiving that information. You know what I mean? So it's just something to like really take into consideration. The point that I would like to give to the strong friends, the strong family members, that might be like a fun title to have, and like, oh, well, I'm the strong friend that people call, blah, 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 blah. It's really not. It's really not fun. It's really not good. You're eternalizing, whether you know it or not. You're taking on these people's problems, and it can actually be killing you. And when you, as the strong friend, end up dead, they're only going to cry at your funeral, because that's all they got to offer is tears. You get what I'm saying? So please do not, take on that strong friend role. And if you are, do your best to slowly remove yourself from that. And you can let people know, like, after they got it off their chest, you can let them know, like, I love you. I care about you. I appreciate our friendship, our familyship, whatever it is, but I'm not able to take on this load. You know what I mean? I have my own things going on, And if that person is really your friend and family, they're going to understand, and they're going to respect it, and they're going to find somebody else to do that too. Or, you could recommend them writing things down or going to a therapist. One tip that, I've given more than one tip, but one real tip that I would like to say to somebody that is experiencing depression, I want you to know our minds are extremely, extremely powerful, right? Even though you're going through a dark time, do your best to visualize yourself at the end. You don't have to worry about how you got there. Just, it's very dark, and it's just like sometimes you going in, it just feels like it's just getting darker and you just seeping in. Do your best to just picture yourself being happy as much as you can. Picture yourself doing something that you really want to do. It could just be one thing as simple as, picturing yourself outside with friends, laughing, whatever it is. Just visualize yourself every single day as much as possible. If you can do that, I can't guarantee it, but it definitely worked for me. And I believe that if you visualize yourself doing something that you love and that you deem as fun or exciting or happy, I think that can really help you a lot get through, those depression moments. So just realize like your mind is a powerful tool. You can use it against you or you can use it for you. And my advice is to just visualize yourself doing something. You don't have to figure out how you got there. Just visualize that end goal. My mother and my children actually are like the people that saved me through this time, and my therapist. My mother, she was extremely, and still is extremely helpful, just allowing me to stay at her house, knowing that I can eat, you got somewhere to go. And she allowed me to be there. She looked after my children for me. And my children, they are so freaking resilient. I love those girls so much. They kept me like, that was my end goal. Like me doing things with my daughter. Like if you follow me on social media, you would see that like now I'm starting like to like take my daughter on trips once a week and stuff like that. I'm a homeschool mom. You'll see that like my thoughts when I was depressed, that happy end goal, I'm actually living it out right now. So I really do believe that it is extremely powerful to just visualize yourself doing something good, something positive, something other than you just being stuck in that depression mode. And it's just like, I don't know. I don't ever wish that shit on anybody, like anybody at all. So I sympathize, I empathize, I understand. Just please, like, really consider, like, going to therapy, journaling, counseling, blogging yourself through those moments, you know what I mean? To get yourself out of there. And finding a therapist or connecting with a therapist is not going to always be easy. I was extremely fortunate that my first therapist I actually had a really good connection with her, but I know that a lot of people are not as fortunate as me. Something else that I also believe is a good tip, like if you're Black, I think that you should really look into getting a Black therapist. If you're white, I think that you should really look into getting a white therapist. If you're Hispanic, I think it's really important for you getting a Hispanic therapist. If you're female, I think that you should get a female therapist. And a male, you should get a male therapist. And the reason why I'm saying this, even though I had a really, really, really good connection with my therapist, I actually have a story that I want to share with you guys. I actually broke up with my therapist. Was it this year? No, last year. I think in December, I actually broke up with my therapist. That was a hard thing to do because me and her was locked in for like 7 whole years. I feel like I shared this part with you guys. I really didn't have and don't have like good relationships with people in my family and stuff like that for multiple reasons. Some of them I stated, some of them I didn't. And I always didn't have, like, I always didn't have a good relationship with my mother either. So even though my mom home is a safe haven for me, at times it can be extremely toxic being there as well, right? It's like a double-edged sword. I guess, is that a double-edged sword? I don't know. One moment is helpful and the next minute it's not that helpful. So I was on the phone with my therapist because, after COVID, all of our sessions was on the phone. And I was on the phone with my therapist, and I just had like a crazy. It was the weekend. It was Monday that my therapy session was on a Monday, and I had like got into it with my mother maybe like the day before, and I never spoken to my therapist in 7 years. I never spoken to her directly after the incident took place. So I'm hot. So I'm like, the phone going in like, I don't know, and my therapist stopped me and she was like, I think that you should go see a psychiatrist. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm in the middle of telling you my life and you giving me recommendations right now. Like, I would have preferred her to give me a recommendation at the end. And I just like kind of like immediately like ended the session because I was offended, not because she recommended a psychiatrist, because shit, I probably need to go see a psychiatrist. I'm not even mad at her, but I'm the type of person, like when somebody speaks to me, my short-term memory is not good, but my long-term memory is amazing. And my brain is like a recorder to like what people say. So it's like I can scan out everything. But if you ask me what happened 5 minutes, 10 minutes ago with the conversation, I may not give you play for play. But if you ask me a week from then, a month from then, I can tell you everything that was said. So I'm really replaying our conversation in my head like multiple times, and I'm an overthinker. If you guys into zodiacs, I'm double air and in my big three, so my brain be computing. So I'm like playing back, and I'm like, what did I say to her that was so crazy that made her say that? And what I said to her was, I told her that I was gonna knock my mama out. I was like, I want to knock her out. And that's some shit that Black kids, I know I'm not the only one that say shit like that. You may not say it to your mama, but you thought about it. Like, I want to knock your ass out. I didn't really mean that I wanted to knock my mother out. But I said it, you know what I mean? Because I was frustrated. And I'm sharing this story with you is because my therapist, she's not Black. She's not African American. So that's a lingo that she wouldn't understand. If I would have said that to a Black woman or, somebody that grew up that's, in the same culture as me, they would have understood that, yeah, she said that, but she didn't actually mean that she wanted to knock her mother out. So she recommended that to me, I believe, is because I told her that. Because that's the only thing that I said that was out of pocket, and she never heard me speak like that before. So that's why I'm recommending that you guys actually, get with somebody that identifies the same way you do. And it may take some time to find it, but I think that the end goal will be a lot better. So, I broke up with my therapist. You know what I mean? Because I was like, clearly, this worked for us for 7 years, but I need somebody to understand me at all times, especially if I'm like paying you and stuff like that. I need you to understand when I say I'm gonna knock my mama out. I want you to understand that I honestly do not mean that I'm gonna knock my mama out, because I would have been knocked my mama out mad years ago and I haven't. So it's just something that, you know what I mean? It was just an expression. It wasn't, you know what I mean? I really didn't actually mean that. I love you, Bobby Rob. I don't want to knock you out. So, I hope this story helps, and I hope it helps somebody, encourage somebody to go see a therapist. And I hope it also encouraged the strong friend, the strong family member. Stop being the strong friend, because only thing that those people are going to do is cry at your funeral. Remember that. So I hope you guys enjoyed episode 9 of Healing Hoes Ain't Hating. I have one more episode before I wrap up this season and start to focus on other things.